All right. Welcome back to the Wrestling Laureate podcast presented to you by the GSMC Podcasting Network. We recently spoke about, the NXT and kind of how they're, kind of heading into Stand and Deliver because it's going to be a pretty big deal. Like I said, it has to be a big deal. It has to get people excited for the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. Like it should be just absolutely stellar, which in my mind, I think it's going to be pretty cool. So tune in, Saturday morning. Don't miss NXT. Just a reminder, once again, we're begging you because we love our fans, to make sure you use the tips and donations link. It's at the gsmcpodcast.net. We get a number of questions through the show, and honestly, I want to talk to you guys. I want to just talk to you guys about some, wrestling, especially going into WrestleMania. WrestleMania, like you can probably sit at a bar. You can probably sit at a bar, talk to a wrestling fan, and talk about WrestleMania for absolute hours. Like that's what I want to be for you guys. Like I'm that guy to sit down here and talk to you guys for hours. Wrestling is something we all have in common, something that we all love, something that we pass down for our kids to generations and generations. But overall, I don't know. I just think, use the tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net. And your questions could pop up at the top so we can have, a nice little talk here. All right. But moving on to this AEW preview. Um, AEW has slowly but surely been kind of creeping up as one of my favorite shows of wrestling to watch during the week. Um, right now NXT is right there, and then you have AEW, and then well, not ranking them as if I hate them. It's like one of those things where if someone has a gun in your head, pick your favorite wrestling show. I'm like, oh, I love all wrestling, but if I had to choose, I do love Shawn Michaels. But that's all wrestling out there right now. But honestly, it's growing, guys. Obviously, you have AEW with the signings as some of Joe back, a couple years ago. Obviously, Jeff Hardy's there. You have a bunch of top name superstars. John Moxley. Well, I think John Moxley actually is doing some fight in New Japan Wrestling. But also Eddie Kingston. You have Will Ospreay. That he was recently just signed, and of course the CEO, Mercedes Moné, making her debut in Boston last week. So AEW is kind of I don't know, it's kind of like that new blood. It's kind of like that new thing that, kind of just sparks your love for wrestling. So you may be a WWE fan and not necessarily kind of want to watch AEW because they're the competitor, and I don't want to attribute to a show that doesn't have all my favorite dudes on them or chicks. But hey, watch AEW. It's a good watch. Absolutely, it's a good watch. So our preview is going to start off with, so we have a street fight tonight. It's probably happening. It's 8:22. It's probably happening right now. Where Chris Statlander and Willow of Nightingale versus Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Of course, Julia Hart and Sky Blue last, last time it was big business. They kind of beat the heck out of Willow of Nightingale until, the CEO came in and she just cleaned house and showed why she's the absolute boss. Better than the boss. She is the CEO, ladies and gentlemen. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see how this storyline is going to kind of unfold. But between Willow of Nightingale and, God, I keep wanting to call her Sasha Banks. Mercedes of Nightingale. We have Willow of Nightingale and Mercedes Moné. They have history, guys. They've been through the industry, so long. Actually, it was during a match between the two that Moné actually she broke her foot, where she was trying to do a stunt off the top rope, landed on her foot wrong, and then that's why she was out for about a year. Which is crazy because I think Moné actually did a small little part for The Mandalorian, the Star Wars, you know, series. I think I read that in an article. Don't quote me on that. But I don't know. So you have them, versus Julia Hart and Sky Blue. So this is a street fight. Street fights, especially among women. I remember the moment where Sasha Banks fought Charlotte Flair and Hell in a Cell. Everyone was like, "Oh, like what are they doing? Like these are two girls like fighting in a structure that's supposed to, be about men." But honestly, like these girls get down. Like some of them like bleed and stuff like that. Like it's total Attitude Era ish, which I absolutely love. I kind of like that. They're kind of treating the girls like the guys. Um, and if anyone's gonna bring a really good match, especially in a street fight, it's gonna be Chris Statlander. Like I've been keeping an eye on her ever since I started watching AEW, and she's a former champ, guys. She has the juice. She has the juice, and as a girl, she can totally kick some A, bro. Totally kick some A. Don't challenge her to a fight because she would kick your A and probably like a street fight or something like that, like a kendo stick, maybe like a big boss man. Oh, like a nightstick, or maybe like a gem hacksaw, like like a 2x4. And then just like totally kick some A. But um, it's gonna be a good match. A couple of street fights that kind of had women wrestlers. Ones that I could remember, and I wrote down. We have Trish Stratus versus Victoria in a 2003 episode of Monday Night Raw, and I watched that match, and it was pretty darn entertaining because especially in 2003, where the evolution was kind of like it was not yet born yet, but it was kind of like at that standstill where you had Trish Stratus, Tori Wilson, Candice Michelle. I think back in 2003, I think maybe they still had Terry Runnels. But anyways, Stacy Keibler, they were, still trying, kind of like fighting their way to be like noticed or like main event contenders. Obviously, this wasn't the main event. Honestly, nowadays I think it would be, especially with Victoria coming like from WCW, the whole invasion thing, where ECW, WCW, Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon, Stephanie McMahon against the WWE guys. I think that's kind of why they had this going on during this time because I know WWE Invasion was like during 2002. Um, but it was pretty darn entertaining. Another match, another street fight that we want to talk about. We have Tegan Knox versus Dakota Kai in NXT TakeOver 2020. We also have Britt Baker versus Abaddon in AEW Rampage October of 2021. And to kind of finish it off as like the number one street fight match amongst women wrestlers, we had the Pretty Empowered versus the Hex, which is NWA 74, August of 2022. So that was fairly recent. So you can probably find that on YouTube somewhere. The NWA is kind of like it's kind of like more of like an independent circuit, like kind of like underground, which is crazy because like the moment NWA kind of merged with the other company for like WCW, like now you kind of have this entity toward itself, and I don't know, something that was like really big is kind of like small, but it's crazy because the wrestling industry, like you don't want to overlook. I think I talked about this last podcast about like a scout for the NFL, the NBA, or the MLB, kind of like looking over these smaller schools, not really recognizing any talent, but in reality, there's probably a bunch of talent. There's probably a gangload of talent that you're probably not looking forward to just because it doesn't have that like that ace on your chest, like you know what I mean. Um, so that's gonna start off with a street fight. Next we have the AEW World Tag Team Championship Tournament. We have the Best Friends fighting the Don Callis family. That should be interesting because I don't know, it's crazy how there's a tag team tournament happening with NXT, AEW, and essentially kind of WWE finding out who fights Damian Priest and Finn Balor. But I don't know. Right now, if you're a wrestling fan, right now is the time of the tag team. Right now, like you have these guys like going at it, and chemistry between tag team opponents are like huge. You want to see people like this, like totally just kicking ass, taking names, propelling their tag team partners right on the top. I remember watching wrestling growing up. I like the Filthy Animals in WCW, which it was Billy Kidman, um, Rey Mysterio, and I believe Conan, and they were just so much fun to watch. It was just so much good wrestling, so much good wrestling. So Tag team wrestling is pretty badass, guys. The next match we have Chris Jericho versus Hook. Chris Jericho and Hook recently tag teamed and they, won their opposition. But Chris Jericho to kind of prove himself as the Lionheart. I kind of like that name. Or I don't. No, I do. It's decent that you have the Lionheart. I want to say Lion Guard because my kids they love the Lion Guard. Oh, 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 oh. It's like a Disney Channel, it's Disney Junior with Kion as he's kind of like Simba's son and he's going to try to take over. But this isn't a Disney Junior Plus podcast, so I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to tell you guys how much I like the plots despite it's for kids. I'm not going to tell you how much I like the catchy songs. I'm not going to, no, I actually kind of like it. Sorry. But no, we get Lionheart, Chris Jericho with Hook. It's gonna be pretty good. It's gonna be pretty good. Like I said before, Hook, his dad Taz, and Chris Jericho go way back. So you can kind of expect something kind of like a match like of that caliber of like you're gonna be suplex. You're gonna be seeing suplexes. You're gonna be seeing honestly a lot of old school wrestling. Probably elbow drops. In the top rope in the corner. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the other one like disrupts the other, throws him in the other corner. It's like 1, 2, 3. You're gonna be probably seeing stuff like that. A lot of old school wrestling, which I'm kind of excited for, like because I'm a huge attitude era kind of guy. So moving on because I know we're running out of time. Mercedes Moné addresses the AEW universe, and just a little spoiler alert. My next segment is going to be about Mercedes Moné and her contract signing with Tony Khan in AEW. But what I kind of wanted to kind of monument and kind of like pinpoint talking right now is that last week AEW Big Business topped out at 1 million viewers during Mercedes Moné's first segment. And as soon as the first segment went off, they lost about around 400,000 viewers. That's a lot. That's absolutely something that should be taken in consideration about women in wrestling and how they could probably hold the strap and kind of hold down the fort like the men can. Like maybe instead of John Cena looking for the next Roman Reigns, maybe he should be looking for the next Mercedes Moné, but we'll get into that a little later. We also have Eddie Kingston versus Kazuchuke oh my god, I can't pronounce Okada against Okada for the Continental Championship. Should be interesting because Okada appeared on the 10 Count podcast and said that he was never a fan of Okada. And as much as Okada and Kenny Omega had pretty monumental matches in the independent circuit, he said even if he doesn't win, he's gonna leave a scar. He said he's gonna take a piece of you with me. So that's pretty cutthroat right there. That's pretty badass. I like that from Kingston as the Continental Champion, basically saying like, "Hey, dude, even if you win, guess what? I'm gonna beat that ASS right there, bro, and you're not gonna forget this guy." And maybe you might leave with a broken leg. Maybe you might leave with another injury or something like that. But I don't know. Eddie Kingston really sticking his flag down, showing his colors, and be like, hey, if you're gonna get past me, guess what? I'm gonna give you 110% of Eddie Kingston, the Continental Champion. I'm gonna give you all of me. I'm gonna give you just my mind, body, and soul. And he's just gonna just lay it all out, which is awesome and entertaining as hell. So hey, like guys, tune into AEW. Our next thing we got going on is the last match between Christian Cage versus Adam Copeland, the Rated R Superstar, for the TNT Championship. So Edge and Christian go way, 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 way back. I think they're 7-time tag team champs. Christian Cage appeared in AEW around 2021. Edge appeared in AEW 2023. They were all together since in Toronto, Canada. They grew up together. They were in the independent circuit. Eventually moved up to the WWF. They were part of the Brood with Gangrel. Kind of looked like a bunch of vampires that actually feuded with the Ministry and the Undertaker, which was a pretty good, which was a pretty good feud back in the early 1990s. Actually, I think it's the late 1990s. Anyways, so honestly, Edge and Christian, they changed history. They changed the tag team championship picture in all the wrestling fashions, either if you were WCW, NWA, WWF/WWE, or if you're like anything under, you knew that you were watching Edge and Christian versus the Dudley Boys, or either Edge and Christian versus Jeff Hardy, or all the three together, Jeff Hardy, or the Hardy Boys versus the Dudley Boys versus Edge and Christian in that monumental TLC match in WrestleMania 2000. They honestly put the division back on the map, and that's something that Edge and Christian should probably, that's something that will bring them into the Hall of Fame in and themselves. I believe Edge is already a Hall of Famer, but this match is going to be really good. This match is just going to be really good. It's an I Quit match. You're going to definitely see them bring out the TLC. You're going to see them bring out the TLC mainly because they created the TLC. They created the ladder match. They created the Money in the Bank. You got to be honest that a lot of these people that are like competing for like levels around the United States Championship and the Intercontinental Championship in ladder matches as well as I don't think they have tables matches so much anymore, but which is a darn shame. But this is gonna be huge. This is gonna be really, really cool. And it's kind of like for me, it's kind of like seeing these people you knew growing up fight in a pretty badass I Quit match. So obviously I'm super stoked about it. All right. Hope you liked segment 2. Don't go anywhere because in segment 3, we have Mercedes Moné contract. We're going to talk about Mercedes Moné. A couple of outsider, experts like Eric Bischoff and a couple of WWE voices and how she feels about joining the AEW. So, hey, don't go anywhere.